A big thanks to my friends to support this Daf Yomi. First of all, my family, like my mom and dad, and Chaim Karen Zion and his whole family, Yaakov Tzvi ben Chaim Leib, Golda Vichna bat Aaron Yosef, Rachel Leah bat Yaakov Tzvi, and to David Zibel, and to Rabbi Joe Schoenwald, to Jay Davidson, to Yossi Chen, Harry Rosenberg, Rabbi Harry Rosenberg, and Moshe Vider, the Vider, the whole Vider family, and anybody else who I missed, please forgive me. You're all in my heart. So, Dr. Moshe Dickman, and all of you. Thank you all very, very much. Now we're going to turn to, we're in the middle of Daf Yud Gimel, just on Amud Beis. We're going to be a little long today, so we can finish Yud Dalet. So, here we go with our recitation of the Talmud Bavli, Koren Talmud Bavli, the rendition of Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz HaGaon, and here we go. We're in Masechet Tanit, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Bet. So my lav birchitza, v'mai ilema b'chamin ein habogeret rasha. V'amar Rav Chisda, Avel asor lahoshit etzba bechamin. Lalav betzonen, lo. Akichul ufirkus. The Gemara analyzes this halacha. The halacha is, here's the halacha lemaisa, that ein habogeret rasha, it is permitted for a grown woman to paint her eye and dye her hair while she is in mourning, including the first 7 days of mourning. That's the Aruch HaShulchan. However, it is prohibited for a young woman to do so. That's the Shulchan Aruch, in Yoreh Deah. So the Gemara analyzes this halacha. What is it not referring to the prohibition against bathing? And in what kind of water may a grown woman bathe? If we say that the Braita is referring to hot water, is a grown woman not permitted to render herself unattractive by refraining from washing in hot water? But didn't Rav Chisda say it is prohibited for a mourner to insert even his little finger into hot water for the purpose of washing? Rather, it is not the case that it is permitted for a grown woman to bathe in cold water, from which one may infer that it is not permitted for a young woman to bathe even in cold water. The Gemara answers no. The Braita is not talking about bathing at all. Rather, it's referring to painting the eyes and dyeing, pirkus, dyeing one's hair and painting the eyes, which is permitted for a grown woman to do during mourning. So, ladies, if God forbid you're in Shiva, you're sitting, you're avelot, you can dye your hair and you can put on makeup. It's perfectly permitted. Also, like we said before, it's permitted to eat meat and drink wine during avelot in the Shiva. Okay, yayin meshivat nefesh. Katuv, wine restores the soul. So for somebody sad, a little wine can restore his soul. It's definitely permitted. It's not encouraged. Maybe it's not encouraged. Whatever. Okay. Lema Masayele Amar Rabbi Abba HaKohen Mishum Rabbi Yossi HaKohen Maseh Umetu Banav Shel Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina V'Rachatz B'Tzonen Kol Shiva. So the Gemara proposes, let us say the aforementioned Braita supports Rava's ruling. As Rabbi Abba the priest said in the name of Rabbi Yossi the priest, an incident occurred in which the sons of Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Chanina, died, and he bathed in cold water all 7 days of mourning. This ruling apparently indicates that a mourner is permitted to bathe in cold water. Amri hatam b'shetekafuhu avalav ze'charzeh. Titania tekafuhu avalav ze'charzeh hichpid sa'aro mekal batar mechabes ksuto b'mayim. Amar Rav Chisda batar avalo b'misparayim b'mayim v'lo b'neter v'lo b'chol v'lo b'ahal. So the Gemara responds, this is not a proof, as they say there it is referring to a case where a mourning period came immediately one after another, and it is taught in a Braita, if one's mourning period came immediately one after the other and his hair grew heavy, he may lighten it with a razor and he may wash his garment in water. As Rav Chisda said, he may trim his hair with a razor but not with scissors. Likewise, he may wash his garment in water but not with natron, nor with sand, and nor with ice plant. What in the world is ice plant? Ahal. There are several plants referred to as ahal which are indigenous in Eretz Israel. One of them is Crystalline Ice Plant. That would be Mesembryanthemum crystallinum. Mesembryanthemum crystallinum, that's in the Latin. It's an annual plant that grows on rocks and walls facing the ocean in the Sharon region on the coastal plain. It is called, in the Sharon region and the coastal plain, it is called crystalline ice plant due to its glistening vesicles that resemble crystals. This plant contains a considerable amount of soda, which was used for laundry and bathing. Back to the Gemara. Ikeda Amre Amar Rava Avel Asor Betzonen Kol Shiva Maishanam Babasar Vayayin Hatam La Fakuche Pachde Hu Da'aved La Fakuche Pachde Hu Da'aved. The foregoing is one version of Rava's opinion in the ensuing discussion. Some say a different version of this debate. Rava said it is prohibited for a mourner to bathe in cold water all 7 days of mourning. The Gemara asks, in what way is this case different from eating meat and drinking wine, which a mourner is permitted to do so? The Gemara responds, there he acts to relieve his anxieties. That wonderful expression in Aramaic of the Talmud, lefakuche pachde, lefakuche pachte, to relieve his anxieties. Since a mourner is typically distressed over the death of a close relative, the sages permit him to fortify himself with strong drink and food. So, the halacha. After the deceased is buried, the mourner is permitted to eat meat and drink wine, a small amount of wine during his meal. However, he should not drink heavily. So we're talking about 1 glass of wine. So it is forbidden for an onen from the time of death until the funeral. It is forbidden to onen to drink wine or eat meat. After the funeral, you can go home, you can have a meal with meat, and you can have a glass of wine with that meal. And then we have a little note here, relieving anxieties. So, lefakuche pachte, eating and drinking helps the mourner cope with his sorrows, whereas washing is a form of pleasure and consequently remains prohibited. So the eating and drinking relieves anxiety, it's therapeutic, it's necessary, you got to eat. So eat a decent meal, you feel better, but the bathing, apparently it's only for pleasure. The question is still if you're permitted to bathe in cold water during the Shiva. I'm trying to look. Maybe we said that before. Did we say before? Let me just look around for the halakha here. I don't know. We're going to have to find that some other time. So it may be, I don't want to say, but it may be permitted to bathe in cold water. Certainly for an istinus, somebody who's very finicky, there's laws of an istinus where you can't handle any kind of dirt or lichluch. You could definitely bathe in cold water. It's not for pleasure. You don't just sit in the water for too long, whatnot. Just a fast cold shower is certainly permitted, especially for an istinus. A hot shower, I'm not sure. I don't ask your rabbi. So, let us say that the following brayta supports Rava's ruling. A grown woman, ein bogeret rasha lenavel atzma, hana'ara rasha'a. B'mai? Ilem b'chamin. Ein bogeret rasha. V'amar Rav Chisda, avel asor lehoshit etzba'o b'chamin. Elelav batzonin? Lo. Akichul ufirkus. The Gemara proposes, let us say that the following brayta supports Rava's ruling. A grown woman is not permitted to render herself unattractive. She's not permitted to render herself unattractive during the days of mourning for her father. If she's mourning for her father, she must look beautiful as much as she would like. She's not permitted to purposely make herself unattractive. That's he says, not permitted. Ein bogeret rasha, not permitted. So, however, as above, the Gemara infers this halacha applies only to a grown woman, but a young woman is permitted to render herself unattractive. In what kind of water may a grown woman bathe? We say that this is referring to hot water. A grown woman is not permitted to refrain. Is a grown woman not permitted to refrain from washing in hot water? But didn't Rav Chisda say it is prohibited for a mourner to even insert his finger into hot water for the purpose of washing? Rather, is it not the case that the Breita is referring to bathing in cold water? The Gemara answers no. The Breita is speaking of painting eyes and dyeing hair. Amar Rav Chisda zot omeret avel asor betichboset kol shiva vehilchata. Avel asor lirchotz kol gufo ben bechamin ben betzonin kol shiva. Aval panav yadav raglav bechamin asor betzonin mutar. Aval lasuch afilu kol shu asor. Im la'aber et zuhama mutar. So here's the law we're looking for. It doesn't. Yes, this is the law. The law is like this. We'll say it after we read the Gemara, then we'll go to the halacha l'maisa. Rav Chisda said, that is to say, that is, as the Breita states, that it is permitted for a grown woman who has observed successive periods of mourning to paint and dye her hair. The same halacha evidently applies to laundry, from which it may be inferred that in an unexceptional case, it is prohibited for a mourner to wash laundry all 7 days of mourning. The Gemara concludes, and the practical halakha is, it is prohibited for a mourner to bathe his entire body, both in hot water and in cold water, all 7 days of mourning. You can't take a cold bath. However, with regard to his face, his hands, and his feet, although it's prohibited to bathe in them in hot water, in cold water it is permitted. You can wash your hands, face, and feet in cold water. Meaning, face, including the neck, hands, that includes underarms, and feet, that includes maybe between the legs. So, you can wash yourself like you need to wash yourself there. However, with regards to smearing with oil, or even any minimal amount of smearing, it was talking about smearing oil, having a rub down with oil, even any minimal amount of smearing is prohibited. But if one does it to remove dirt, it is permitted. They used to smear with oil and scrape it off to remove the dirt back in ancient times. We don't do that so much now. We have soap, so Slota de ta'anita, next Breita. Slota de ta'anita hechi mad karinan. Adebre Rav Yehuda l'Rav Adbere Rav Yehuda l'Rav Yitzchak bere v'darash. Yachid shekibel alav ta'anit mitpalel shel ta'anit v'hechan omra ben goel l'rofeh. The Gemara returns to the discussion of the Anenu prayer, recited on fast days. The prayer of a fast, how does one mention it? Rav Yehuda granted his son Rav Yitzchak general permission to expound publicly, while instructing him in the substance of what he should say. And Rav Yitzchak taught an individual who took a fast upon himself prays the prayer of a fast. And where in the Amida does he recite the additional prayer? Between the 7th blessing of the Amida, who redeems, and the 8th blessing, who heals. Matkifla Rav Yitzchak. V'ki yachid kovea berachal atzmo, ela amar Rav Yitzchak b'shomei tefillah. V'kein amar Rav Sheshet b'shomei tefillah. So Rav Yitzchak strongly objects to this. But may an individual establish a blessing for himself in addition to the fixed blessings of the Amida? Rather, Rav Yitzchak said one mentions his fast in the blessing who listens to prayer, in accordance with the general principle that an individual may insert private requests into this general plea for acceptance of prayers, including matters outside the scope of the established blessings. So basically you can ask for whatever you want in Shomei Tefillah. And similarly, Rav Sheshet said one recites the prayer for a fast day and the blessing who listens to prayer. So when you say Anenu on the fast day, you say it in Shomei Tefillah. Okay. Meisave. En ben yachid l'tzibur ele shezeh mitpelel shmona esrei v'zeh mitpelel shmona esrei. Ma yachid o ma tzibur? Ilema yachid mamash v'tzibur shalich tzibur. Hanitesha shayesrei. Asrin v'arba havu. The Gemara raises an objection from a Breita. The only halachic difference between an individual and a community is that this one, the individual prays 18 blessings and in his Amida, and that one for the community prays 19 blessings. The Gemara analyzes the statement. What is an individual and what is the community in this context? If we say that an individual means an actual individual and the community is referring to the communal prayer leader, are there really only 19 blessings in the communal limit of a fast? There are 24 blessings. As will be explained, 6 additional blessings are added on communal fast days. Elalavechi kamar, en ben yachid lekabel alav tanit yachid liyachid shekabel alav tanit tzibor. En ben yachid lekabel alav tanit yachid liyachid shekabel alav tanit tzibor. Ele shezeh mitpalel shmanasre, v'zeh mitpalel chayasre. Shmamina yachid kovea bracha le'atzmo. Rather, it is not a case. Is it not a case that this is what the Braita is saying? The only halachic difference between an individual who took an individual fast upon himself and an individual who took a communal fast upon himself is only that this one prays 18 blessings, and as he mentions, is fast in the blessing who listens to prayer, and this one prays 19 blessings. Learn from this statement that an individual may establish an individual blessing for himself. Lo, leolam emalach shliach tzibor, daka kashalach tzibor esrin v'arba matzle. Bishlosh ta'aniyot rishonot daleka esrim va'arba. The Gemara rejects this contention. No, actually, I could say to you that this mention of a community is referring to the prayer leader, the Sheikh Tzibor, not the whole community. And with regard to what poses a difficulty for you that the prayer leader prays 24 blessings. The Braita is referring to the first 3 fasts in which there are not 24 blessings, but only the usual 18 blessings plus 1 additional blessing for fast days. Velo, v'ha en ben katane, en ben shalosh rishonot l'shalosh amsayot. Ele shebe'elu mutarin ba'asiyat melacha ve'elu asurin ba'asiyat melacha. Ha le'esrin v'arba ze v'ze shavin. The Gemara questions this resolution. And are the 6 additional blessings not recited on the first series of communal fasts? But with regard to this issue, a Braita taught the instructive phrase, the only difference between them is as follows. The difference between the first 3 fasts and the middle 3 fasts is only that on these first fasts it is permitted to perform work, and on these middle fasts it is prohibited to perform work. This indicates that with regard to reciting all 24 blessings, both this and that are identical. Tana v'shi'er, my shi'er d'hai shi'er, v'tu v'ha en ben katane, ele tana b'isure kamayri, v'tfilot lo mayri, v'ibayit ema be'emtsayata nami lo matzale esrin v'arba. Emtsayata nami lo matzale esrim va'arba. The Gemara rejects this argument. The Tana taught some of the differences between the fasts and omitted some of them. The Gemara asks, what else did the Tana omit that you can justifiably claim that you omitted this case? In other words, is it possible for the Tana to have omitted a few examples, but he would not have omitted a single case? And furthermore, the Braita does not merely offer a list of differences, as it teaches the difference between them is only v'ha en ben katane. The difference between them is only. This phrase indicates that there is only one difference. Rather, the Tana is speaking of the various prohibitions of fast days, but he is not speaking of other differences, such as those that involve the details of prayers. And if you wish, say instead that on the middle 3 fasts too, the prayer leader does not pray 24 blessings, as the 6 additional blessings are recited only during the last series of fasts. Velo, v'hatanya, ein ben shalosh shniyot l'sheva achronot ele shebe'elu matri'in v'no'alin et hachanuyot, ha l'kol divreihem ze v'ze shavin. The Gemara expresses surprise at this. And does the prayer leader not recite all 24 blessings during the middle 3 fasts? But isn't it taught in a Braita? The difference between the second set of 3 fasts and the last 7 fasts is only that in these they sound the alarm and lock the stores. This indicates that with regard to all the other matters, both this and that are identical. And if you say that here too he taught and omitted, but it teaches the difference between them is only indicating that there is only one, there is no other difference except the one mentioned. The only difference is sounding the alarm and locking the stores. Sounding the alarm, locking the stores, but otherwise the first three and the last seven are the same. It's only the last seven you sound the alarm and lock your doors of stores. But Tispera en ben dafka, the Gemara asks, and how can you understand it this way? Does the phrase the difference between them is only, and ben, specifically means that there is only a single difference between these cases? V'hashi'er teva. I mishum teva lav shi'urahu. Mile de tzin'a katane. Mile de befarhezia lo katane. But he omitted any mention of the ark, and the halacha that during the last 7 fast days the ark was brought into the streets of the city. The Gemara rejects this argument. If the omission is due to the ark, then it is not a real omission. The reason that the Tana teaches only matters that are performed in private, whereas he does not teach matters that are performed in public. The reason that the Tana teaches only the reason is that the Tana teaches only matters that are performed in private, b'tzina, whereas he does not teach matters that are performed in public, but parhesia. Public and parhesia, this is a very interesting word. The word parhesia comes from the Greek paresia, which originally referred to freedom of speech or a free political regime. As used by the sages, the word means public or visible at all. Amar Ravashi, matniti nami daika, dekatani ma elu yeterot ala rishonot, ela shebe'elu matri'in v'nolin techaniyot, aval b'kol divreihem ze v'ze shavin, v'kitema hacha nami tana v'shi'er, v'ha ma elu katane. Ravashi said, the wording of the Mishnah is also precise. According to this explanation, as it teaches, the wording of the Mishnah is also precise according to this explanation, as it is taught. How are these 7 fasts more stringent than the first other ones? Rather, the difference is that on these days, in addition to all the earlier stringencies, they sound the alarm and they lock the stores. However, in regard to all their other matters, both this and that are identical. And if you say that here too he taught and omitted, but it teaches, how are these? Vaha ma elu katane. How are these more stringent? And this expression, ha ma elu, indicates that the Mishnah states only the difference. Vaha ma elu is that the Mishnah states the only difference. V'tispera ma elu davkahu, v'hashier lo teva, v'hashier la teva. I mishum teva lav shi'urahu, mishum dekach hashev la be'idach pirka, hashta da'atet lahachi, esrim v'arba nami lav shi'urahu, dekatani la be'idach pirka. So the Gemara asks, and how can you understand the phrase, how are these specifically, as indicating that there is only one difference between the cases? But he omitted the ark. What about the ark in the public place, in the public streets? The Gemara responds, if the omission is due to the ark, if the omission is due to the ark, that is not a real omission, because the Tana includes it in another chapter, in the next page. The Gemara comments, now that you have arrived at this solution, a similar answer can be applied to the earlier difficulties. The matter of the 24 blessings is also not an omission, as he teaches this halacha in another chapter, also in the next page, which starts another chapter, I believe, where the Mishnah provides further details of the blessings. Here, however, the Tana lists only those matters that are not discussed later. Mahavi Allah. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Sasratai. V'ken amar Rav Chia bar Ashi amar Rav. Ben Goel Rofeh. V'Rav Ashi amar Mishmei de Rabbi Yanai berei de Rabbi Yishmael. B'shomei tefillah. V'hilchata b'shomei tefillah. Since no decisive proof was offered in support of any of the opinions as to where an individual inserts the Anenu prayer, the special prayer on a fast day, the Gemara asks, what halachic conclusion was reached about this matter? Rabbi Shmuel bar Sasretai said, and similarly Rav Chia bar Ashi said that Rav said, one inserts it between the seventh blessing of the Amida, who redeems, and the eighth blessing, who heals. And Rav Ashi said in the name of Rabbi Yanai, the son of Rabbi Ishmael, one inserts it in the blessing Shomei Tefillah. We have the same problem as before. The Gemara concludes, and the halacha is that one includes it in the blessing Shomei Tefillah, who hears prayer, listens to prayer. So, that's the halacha. Next, Braita. Tane chada ubarot menikot mitanot barishonot ve'en mitanot ba'achronot. V'tanya idach mitanot ba'achronot ve'en mitanot barishonot. V'tanya idach en mitanot lo barishonot ve'lo ba'achronot. It is taught in one Braita, pregnant and nursing women fast with the community on the first fast days, but they do not fast on the last fasts. And it was taught in another Braita, pregnant and nursing women fast on the last set of fasts, but they do not fast on the first set of fasts. And it was taught in yet another Braita, they do not fast either on the first fast days or on the last fast days. Amar Rav Ashi nakot emsa'ita bidach demitartsun kulhu. Rav Ashi says, take the matter of the middle fast in your hand as the decisive matter, as this resolves all three braitot. The halacha is that pregnant nursing women fast only in the middle fasts, and they are stricter than the first fasts, but less taxing than the last seven. Consequently, when the first braita is referring to the first fasts, it in fact means the middle set, which is the first of the last two sets. Similarly, when the second Braita mentions the last fasts, it means the middle set, which is the last of the two sets. In the third Braita, the first and last fasts are literally the first three and the last seven fasts, respectively. In this manner, all three Braitot follow the same halacha. And as you already know for many years, or maybe somebody doesn't know, so I'll say it, a Braita is a Mishnah that was not included in the Mishnah. Braita means bar, outside. So it's a halachic support a little less than a Mishnah, which used as a proof for these arguments. Okay, the halacha is pregnant and nursing women are obligated to fast in the middle three fasts imposed on the community in times of drought, but not in the first three of the last seven fasts. However, on fasts that are not required to observe, they may eat only what is necessary for the well-being of the fetus or the infant. Some commentaries add that a pregnant or nursing woman may not act stringently and observe a fast from which she is exempt. So let's look into a little deeper the subject of the pregnant and nursing women. Most early authorities followed the explanation of Rashi in the Rif, that according to Rav Ashi, pregnant and nursing women need to observe the middle three fasts. They are not required to fast on the first 3 days, as these are not especially stringent, and they are not required to observe the last 7 days, because those fasts are too numerous and too stringent. Other commentaries add that pregnant and nursing women are not required to observe the last series of fasts because certain practices laden with emotion are observed on those days, such as visiting cemeteries, extreme manifestations of crying, which might prove dangerous for pregnant or nursing women. In contrast, the Rambam Maimonides rules that pregnant and nursing women fast on the last 7 fasts, not on the first or middle series of 3 fasts. Apparently, he understands Rav Ashi is saying, take the middle breita in your hands, that is to say, disregard the first and last breitot, and rule in accordance with the middle breita, which states that pregnancy and nursing women are required to observe only the last fasts. Some commentaries who accept the Rambam's ruling that pregnant and nursing women fast only the last series of days suggest a way in which all these breitot can be reconciled with that opinion. I find it difficult that pregnant and nursing women would be required to fast 7 days. Clearly, there are many, you ask your rabbi, he'll probably say you don't have to. But it's a halachic discussion, Okay, now we're on the next sugya. Ma elu yeterot al rishonot. Elu shebe'elu matriin v'noelin techanuyot. B'may matriin? Rav Yehuda amar b'shofarot. V'Rav Yehuda beredo Rav Shmuel bar Shelat mishmei de Rav amar ba'anenu. The Mishnah teaches how are these 7 fast days more stringent than the first ones. Rather, the difference is that on these days, in addition to the earlier stringencies, they sound the alarm and they lock the stores. The Gemara asks, with what do they sound the alarm? Rav Yehuda says, with the shofarot. And Rav Yehuda, son of Rav ben Shelat, said in the name of Rav, with the Anenu prayer. Some say the alarm is the shofarot, some say it's the special prayer Anenu, which is like an alarm. Kasal kadatan manda amar ba'anenu lo amar b'shofarot manda amar b'shofarot lo amar ba'anenu v'atanya ein potchin mishevet aniyot al tzibor shebehen 18 atraot v'siman ledavar Yericho v'Yericho shofarot hava v'Yericho shofarot hava v'tiyuvta leman amar ba'anenu. The Gemara analyzes the dispute. It might enter into our minds to say that one who said that the community sounds the alarm by reciting Anenu, that is Rav, that is to say, Rav did not say that they cry out with shofarot, and likewise the one who said that they do cry out with shofarot, Rav Yehuda, did not say that they sound the alarm by reciting Anenu. Again, the one who said that the Anenu is the alarm, meaning like Rav who said that, he didn't say with shofarot. And likewise, the one who said with the shofarot, meaning Rav Yehuda, he didn't say sounding alarm with the Anenu prayer. But isn't it taught in a Braita, the court does not decree fewer than 7 fasts on the community, which include 18 acts of sounding the alarm? And a mnemonic for this matter is Yericho. And as there were many episodes of sounding the shofarot in Jericho, this is a conclusive refutation of the one who said that according to the opinion of Rav, they sound the alarm only by reciting Anenu. Answer us. So, the alarm is sounding the shofars. Ela, b'shofarot tekule alma lo pligi dekare la hatra'a. Ki pligi ba'anenu, marsavar kare la hatra'a, marsavar lo kare la hatra'a. So rather, the Gemara explains that the dispute must be understood differently. With regard to shofarot, everyone, Rav and Rav Yehuda, agree that the Mishnah calls this sounding the alarm. When they disagree is with regard to the Anenu prayer. One sage, Rav, holds that this too is called sounding the alarm, and one sage, Rav Yehuda, holds that reciting Anenu is not called sounding the alarm. Laman damar ba'anenu kol sheken b'shofarot, laman damar b'shofarot, aval anenu, laman damar b'shofarot, aval ba'anenu lo. The Gemara comments, if so, then it follows that according to the one who said that they sound the alarm by reciting Anenu, all the more so they can do this with shofarot, but according to the one who said that they sound the alarm with shofarot, this is the way they sound the alarm. However, they may not do so with Anenu. That is to say, the community does not sound the alarm by reciting this prayer. This indicates that the Anenu prayer is recited only in extreme cases, as it is a greater form of petitioning God than blowing shofar. Okay, we're going to read a slightly longer note here. Why? Because it's interesting. With what do they sound the alarm? B'mai matri'in. A distinction is made between trumpets, which are made of metal, and the shofar, which is from an animal horn. The Gemara elsewhere in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chaf Zayin Amud Aleph, cites a braita that teaches that outside the temple, at those times when trumpets are sounded, shofarot are not sounded. And when shofarot are sounded, trumpets are not sounded. That's outside of the temple. Rashi explains that when that braita speaks of a time when the trumpets are sounded, it is referring to communal fast days. This indicates that on communal fast days only trumpets are blown, not shofarot. Rabbi Zerachia Levi cites the Gaonim, who note that by common practice only shofarot are sounded on communal fasts, a practice supported by the Jerusalem Talmud. He further argues that this custom cannot be reconciled with the Braita in Tractate Rosh Hashanah. The Ra'avad of Poskiers adds that the Gemara here further strengthens the difficulty with the Braita, as Rav Yehuda maintains that the alarm is sounded on communal fasts by means of shofarot. He explains that the Braita in Tractate Rosh Hashanah is referring to the blasts that follow each of the 6 additional blessings inserted into the Amidah, recited by the prayer leader. These were performed by trumpets. The Gemara here, in contrast, refers to the blasts of shofarot at the conclusion of the Amidah, where the service was extended with additional prayers and supplications. Others cite an opinion according with the term shofar mentioned by others cite an opinion according to which the term shofar mentioned by Rav Yehuda actually is referring to trumpets. That's the Rambam and the Ramban, Nachmanides, and the Ritva. According to these two opinions, shofarot should not be sounded on communal fast days during the Amidah, in contradistinction to the common practice attested to by the Gaonim. So the commentary suggests several ways in which this passage can be understood in its plain sense. That shofarot are sounded after each of the additional blessings recited on communal fasts, and yet the common practice of blowing shofarot can be reconciled with the Braita in Rosh Hashanah. That's the Rashba and the Ritva. One possibility is that when the Braita speaks of sounding trumpets, it is not referring to communal fast days, but times of war, where the entire Jewish people gathers together to recite special prayers. Alternatively, the Braita may indeed be referring to communal fasts, but it does not mean that only trumpets are sounded. Rather, it means that if trumpets are sounded, shofarot should not be blown together with them, and vice versa. By common practice, only shofarot are blown, as they are generally more available. We continue. L'man demar ba'anenu kol sheken b'shofarot, l'man demar b'shofarot, aval ba'anenu lo. The Gemara comments, if so, then it follows that according to the one who said that they sound the alarm by reciting a nenu, all the more so they can do with shofarot. But according to the one who said that they sound the alarm with shofarot, that is the way we sound the alarm. However, they may not do so with a nenu. That is to say, the community does not sound the alarm by reciting this prayer. This indicates that the anenu prayer is recited only in extreme cases, as it is a greater form of petitioning God than blowing the shofar. V'hatanya, v'shar kol minei puraniyot v'hamitragshot b'kogon chikuch, chagav, zvuv, v'tzir'ah, v'yatoshin, v'shaliach nechashim v'akravim, lo hayu matrim ele tzoakin, mid'tza'aka b'peh, hatra'a b'shofarot. The Gemara raises a difficulty against this conclusion, but isn't it taught in a Braita? And with regard to all other types of calamities than drought that break out, for example, scabs, plagues of locusts, flies, hornets, mosquitoes, infestations of snakes or scorpions, that they would not sound the alarm, but they would cry out. I would cry out. I'd cry out running away. I'd be crying just thinking about it. So, from the fact that crying out is, according to all opinions, a prayer recited with the mouth, it follows that sounding the alarm must be with shofarot. This Braita indicates that sounding the alarm with shofarot is the response to a serious situation, whereas the Anenu prayer is recited on less worrisome occasions. So flies, hornets, mosquitoes, all manner of pestilence. The appearance of a multitude of these insects is caused by particular weather conditions. An increase of flies is a serious nuisance in its own right, so much so that certain nations had a special cult and a god for the removal of flies. How about that? Mosquitoes, apart from the irritation they cause, can spread malaria. The hornet, whose sting is mentioned in the Bible as one of the factors that led to the overthrow of the Canaanites, you can look at Exodus chapter 23, verse 28, and Joshua chapter 24, verse 12, that the hornet may be identified with the oriental hornet. I don't think it's the killer hornet, the murder hornet, but it's the oriental hornet, the Vespa orientalis. It might be the murder hornet, I don't know. Similarly, later, the ones that never came that we were worried about, but instead of the murder hornet, we got all of the civil unrest and wild style, what's going on in the States right now. Jewish lives matter, right? Similarly, later historians tell us that they were abandoned due to that cities. Later historians tell of entire cities that were abandoned due to a plague of mosquitoes and hornets. How about a plague of violent demonstrations? Okay, no, but I'm not getting political here. Okay, so Rashi explains Rabbi Yossi's words in two ways. Rashi says in the commentary on the text, follows Rashi's first explanation, according to which Rabbi Yossi permits the community to sound the alarm in times of danger, to summon people for assistance even on Shabbat, but he does not allow them to cry out for God in prayer on Shabbat. According to Rashi's second explanation, Rabbi Yossi maintains that on Shabbat, people may pray for assistance as individuals, but not as a community. So the alarm is sounded on Shabbat so people can help each other, but they don't cry out in prayer on Shabbat. That's the first opinion of Rashi. Rashi's second explanation is that Rabbi Yossi says that on Shabbat, people may pray for assistance as individuals, but not as a community. The Rambam, Maimonides, maintains that when Rabbi Yossi permits a community in danger to summon people to its rescue, he even permits the shofar to be sounded for that purpose. The anonymous first Tana agrees with him on this point, as when it comes to saving lives, all prohibitions on Shabbat are suspended. So, next Braita, Bishne de Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya Havat Sa'ara. During the years of Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, there was a trouble that afflicted the community. Gazar tlatusre taniot velo iane savar lemigzar tefe amar le Rabbi Ami hare amaru en matrichin et tzibor yoter midai. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya decreed 13 fasts, but he was not answered. He considered decreeing more fasts so they'd be answered, but Rabbi Ami said to him that they said one does not trouble the community excessively. Tircha de tzipora is something that the community can't handle. You don't decree. Therefore, you should not impose more than 13 fasts. Amar Rabbi Abba Bred Rabbi Chia bar Abba Rabbi Ami da'avad legarme hu da'avad. Ele hachi amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba amar Rabbi Yochanan. Lo shanu ele ligeshamim. Aval leshar mine poraniot mit'anin v'holchin ad she'ye'anu min hashamayim. Tanya nami hachi b'sha'amru shalosh v'k'shamru sheva. Lo amru ele ligeshamim. Aval leshar mine poraniot mit'anin v'holchin ad she'ye'anu. I must turn on the light. It's getting kind of dark, so please, we're having a brief intermission. Don't go away. I'll be back in 10-15 seconds. Okay, and here we go. And we're back. Rabbi Abba, son of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, said when Rabbi Ami acted and issued this ruling, he did so on his own authority, as it went against the majority opinion. Rather, Rabbi Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan said as follows. They taught only that the community observes a maximum of 13 fasts when they are praying for rain. However, with regard to other types of calamities, they continue to fast until they are answered from heaven. The Gemara comments, this halacha is also taught in a Braita. When the sages said 3 and when they said 7, they spoke only concerning fasts for rain. However, with regard to other types of calamities, they continue to fast until they are answered. So, Lema Tevet Yufta de Rabbi Ami? Amar lach Rabbi Ami Tanaehi, the Tanya ein gozrin yoter mishlosh taniot el tzibor. The fisha ein matrichina to tzibor yoter midai. Divre Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel omer lo min Hashem hu zeh ela mipnei sheyatza zmana shel revi'ah. The Gemara suggests, let us say that this Braita is a conclusive refutation of the opinion of Rabbi Ami. The Gemara answers, Rabbi Ami could have said to you that this is a dispute between Tanaim, as it is taught in a Braita. One does not decree more than 13 fasts on the community, as one does not trouble the community excessively. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says this halacha is not for that reason. Rather, it is due to the fact that after 13 fasts, the time of rainfall is already passed. And there is no reason to fast for rain and the rainy season, because the rainy season has ended. Shalchule b'nei Nineveh l'Rabbi, kagon anam, da'afilu b'tkufat Tamuz ba'enan mitra, hechin aved, ki yachidim damenan, o karabim damenan, ki yachidim damenan, או בשומע תפילה, או קרבים דמנן, ובברכת השנים. שלח לו כי יחידים דמתו, ובשומע תפילה. The Gemara relates a story on a similar topic. The inhabitants of Nineveh sent a question to Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. First of all, where is Nineveh? Nineveh, the ancient city of Nineveh, was located near the modern-day Mosul in Iraq. It's along the Tigris in northwest. It's Mosul along the Tigris in northwestern Iraq. Little rain falls in this region, about 400 millimeters annually, while the summers are invariably extremely dry. It is therefore surprising that the people of Nineveh would pray for rain in the summer. Other versions of the text render the name differently. Neve, dwelling place. It's possible this incident occurred in a place that had a different climate where it usually rains in the summer months, and it's not Nineveh next to Mosul at all. It's just Neve, a certain place with a certain climatic condition. So, Shalchu le b'nei Nineveh l'Rebbe. The inhabitants of Nineveh sent a question to Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. People such as us who require rain even during the season of Tammuz and who live in areas where rain falls all year round, what do we do when there is a drought during the summer? Are we likened to individuals or are we likened to a community? Okay, so what he says in this note about Nineveh being around Mosul is surprising because it doesn't seem to fit the case. That is Nineveh. Let's assume that's Nineveh. Something's wrong because the Gemara is describing a different climate. It doesn't rain in the summers in Mosul. It's very rare. It would rain in the summers in Mosul. So how could it be there? So perhaps it is Nineveh. It's another place where it does rain in the summer, and they need rain in the summer. Okay. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, people such as us who require rain even during the season of Tammuz and live in areas where rain falls all year round, what should we do when there's a drought during the summer? Are we likened to individuals or are we likened to a community? The Gemara explains the practical difference between these two options. Are we likened to individuals and therefore we pray for rain and the blessing who listens to prayer, Shomei Tefillah? Or are we likened to a community who prays for rain in the ninth blessing, the blessing of years, Birchot HaShanim? He sent his answer to them, you are likened to individuals and therefore you pray for rain in the blessings, Shomei Tefillah. Meisivei Amar Rav Yehuda Ematai, Bizman she'ashanim ketiknan v'Yisrael shruyin al admatan. Aval bizman hazeh hakol lefi hashanim, hakol lefi hamakomot, hakol lefi hazman. Amar le matnita rameta le derabi, Rabbi Tanahu ufaleg. Rabbi Tanahu ufaleg. The Gemara raises an objection from Braita. Rabbi Yehuda said, when do the halachot concerning the times during which the prayer for rain is recited apply? When the years, that is to say the climate, are as they ought to be, and the Jewish people are living in their land. Okay, what's the years as they ought to be? So Rashi says that this Braita is referring to the order of fasts mentioned in the chapter. The halachot in the Mishnah for fasts and years of drought apply only when the seasons occur in their regular order, and the Jewish people are living in their land. However, outside Eretz Israel, or if the seasons do not occur in the regular manner, fasts are decreed in accordance with the needs of the community in a particular place at a particular time. Conversely, most early authorities maintain that the Braita is referring to prayer for rain in the blessing who listens to prayer, Shomei Tefillah. The Rambam, Maimonides, possibly understands the Braita as referring to both the prayer for rain and to the order of fast decreed at times of drought. So, the question, when do the halach concerning the times which the prayer for rain is recited apply? It's when the years are as they ought to be, and the Jewish people are living in their land. However, nowadays, when the Jewish people are dispersed around the world and the climate is not always as it ought to be, all is in accordance with the year, meaning the local climate. All is in accordance with the place in question, and all is in accordance with a particular time. And therefore one prays for rain and the blessing of the years, as necessary for the local climate. He said to him, you raise a contradiction from a Braita against Rabbi Yehuda Nasi? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi himself is a Tana, and consequently he has the authority to dispute the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So let's just learn the halacha about nowadays. What do we do nowadays? In places where the rainy season does not parallel that of Eretz Israel, if rain has not fallen when it should, individuals embark on a series of 3 fasts, after which the court imposes a series of up to 13 fasts upon the members of the community, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Any communal fast decreed outside of Eretz Israel is considered an individual fast, and therefore these fasts begin only at dawn. This is in accordance with the opinion of Shmuel that there are no communal fasts outside Eretz Israel other than the 9th of Av. That's in the Shulchan Aruch or Achaim, Taf Kuf Ayin He Siman Tet Sif Tet Sif Yud. Mai Have Allah. Rav Nachman Amar Bevirchat Hashanim, Rav Sheshet Amar B'Shomei Tefillah, V'Hilchata B'Shomei Tefillah. Gemara says, what's the halakha conclusion? Rav Nachman says, one prays for rain and the blessing of the years, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Sheshet said, one prays in the blessing who listens to prayer. As stated by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the Gemara concludes the halakha is if rain is required when it is not the rainy season in Eretz Israel, one prays for rain and the blessing Shomei Tefillah, who listens to prayer. Next, Braita. Basheni matin im chashecha b'chamishi kol hayom mipnei kavod haShabbat. Ibaylu hechi katane. Basheni matin im chashecha b'chamishi kol hayom mipnei kavod haShabbat. O Dilma Basheni Matin v'Chamishi Porchin Kol Hayom Kulo. The Mishnah taught on Monday they opened the stores a little bit at nightfall, and on Thursday they are permitted to open the stores all day in deference to Shabbat. A dilemma was raised before the sages. How is this taught? That is to say, what is the meaning of this ruling? Does it mean that on Monday the store owners open their doors a little bit at nightfall? On Thursdays they like when open their doors just a little, but do so all day in deference to Shabbos? Or perhaps the Mishnah means on Monday they open their doors a little, but all day, a little bit, but all day. And on Thursdays they open their doors wide the entire day. Tashma d'Tanya b'sheni matin ad ha'erev, b'chamishi potchin kol hayom kulo mipnei kavod haShabbat. Hayu lo shnei p'tachim potech echad v'noal echad. Haya lo itztaba keneged pitcho. The Gemara answers, come and hear a resolution of the dilemma as is taught in the Braita. Braita says, on Monday they open their doors a little until the evening, and on Thursday they open their doors the entire day in deference to Shabbos. Thursday a little bit until evening, Monday a little bit until the evening, and Thursday is all the whole long day. If one's shop had two entrances, he opens one and locks one, thereby demonstrating that the store is not opened in the normal manner. If he had a platform outside his entrance which conceals the door to his store, he may open in his usual manner without concern, as it is prohibited to open one's store not due to work, but only so that it not appear that the people are eating and drinking on this day. Avru elu v'lo na'anu mama'atin b'masal matan b'binyan u'v'menetiya. Tana binyan shel simcha. Netiya shel simcha. Ezo binyan shel simcha. Ze habone bayat chatanut livno. Eze hi netiya shel simcha. Ze hanotea abvarnaki shel melachim. Abvarnaki shel melachim. The Mishnah taught if these fasts have passed and they have not yet been answered, they decrease their engagement in business negotiations and in building and planting. It was taught in the Tosefta. Building means joyful building, not building in general. Likewise, planting means joyful planting, not all planting. The Tosefta elaborates. What is joyful building? This is referring to one who builds a wedding chamber for his son. It was customary upon the marriage of his son to build him a small house where the marriage feast was held, and where the newlywed couple would live for a certain period of time, like a yurt, right? What is joyful planting? This refers to one who plants a splendid royal garden that does not serve practical purposes, but only for ornamentation. So, next Braita, V'she'elat shalom, Tanu Rabbanan Chavarim ein she'elat shalom benehen, Ame aretz shesholin machzirin lehem b'safar rafa uv'koved rosh, hen mit Atfin v'yoshvin ka'avelim u'kemenudin kivnei adam hanezufin lamakom ad she'yirachamu alehem min hashamayim. And the Mishnah further taught that they decreased greetings between one another. The sages taught chavarim, members of a group dedicated to the precise observance of mitzvot, do not extend greetings between each other at all. Amei aretz, common, uneducated folks, who extend greetings to chavarim, do so while unaware that this is appropriate. So the Chavarim, they answer them, but in an undertone and bekoved rosh, in a solemn manner. And Chavarim wrap themselves and sit as mourners and as ostracized ones, in nidui, like people who have been rebuked by God until they are shown mercy from heaven. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Ein Adam Chashuv Rashai Lipol al Panav Ele Im Kein Na'aneh Ki Yoshua ben Nun Shneimar Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua Kum Lach Lama Ze Ata Nofel al Panecha. Rabbi Elazar said an important person is permitted to fall on his face and humiliate himself in front of the community only if he is certain that he will be answered like Joshua son of Nun, as it is stated, and the Lord said to Joshua, "Get up, why are you fallen on your face?" Joshua chapter 7. One who is not absolutely certain that he will be answered may not fall on his face in public as if he is unanswered, he will become the object of derision. The halacha, an important person is not permitted to fall on his face when he prays in public. That's the Taz, citing the Rosh. He's not permitted to fall on his face when he prays in public on behalf of the community, unless he is certain that he will be answered like Joshua. How could he be certain? I don't know. Maybe he has... We've seen this happen before with him. It's as a chazakah. There's a reasonable assumption that he'll be answered, so perhaps in that case. Some authorities maintain that one may not fall on his face even if he is praying on his own behalf, the Pri Chadash. Others maintain that it's prohibited for one to fall on his face when he prays on behalf of the community. However, they add that this stricture applies even if he is praying in private on the community's behalf. That's the Aruch HaShulchan. So let's just say about Ein Adam Chashuv Rashai Lipol al Panav El Im Ken Na'aneh Ki Yoshua ben Nun. So Rashi states that the reason that an important person is permitted to fall on his face only if he knows he'll be answered like Joshua, the reason is that he does not suffer public humiliation in the event that his prayers go unanswered. No, the reason that he doesn't do that, because, if he's not absolutely positive he'll be answered, he doesn't do it because he'd be shamed in public. Alternatively, if he is not answered after falling on his face, this might constitute a desecration of God's name. That's the Talmud Yerushalmi and the Meiri said that. Yet others state that this behavior might upset the community, the Nimukei Yosef, or that it is a sign of arrogance and pretentiousness, a display of assurance that one's prayer would be answered. That's the Gaonim and the Talmidei Ramban. The Gaonim and the Talmid Ramban, sorry. So, somebody who makes a big deal, is making a spectacle of himself. It's pretentious. You don't do that. Some say this halacha applies only when an individual is praying in public. However, if one is praying in private on his own behalf, he can fall on his face, he can lie on the floor for hours. If you're alone in your room or alone in home, you do whatever you want. If you're locked up in a grave somewhere, you can lie on the grave and cry your heart out. But if your people see you on the grave, they're going to say, "Oh, who's the show-off? Who's the pretentious person who thinks he's a big tzaddik?" So it's only in private. I was with somebody once who went to a grave and he lied on it and all like top on his back, on his front, on his side, and it rolled all around. It was kind of weird. Sorry, excuse me, it was BS. It was total BS. But he thought he was going to heal somebody, didn't work, whatever. Well, at least he tried. Okay, I wouldn't do it if I were you. Amar Rabbi Elazar, lo hakol bekriya. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Ein Adam Chashuv Rashai Lachgor Sak Ele Im Kein Na'aneh Ba Ki Yehoram ben Achav. שנאמר ויהי כשומע המלך את דברי האישה ויקרע את בגדיו והוא עובר על החמה וירא העם והנה השק על בשרו. Rabbi Elazar said an important person is permitted to gird himself in sackcloth as a sign of mourning and to pray for mercy only if he is certain that he will be answered like Jehoram, son of Ahab. As is stated, and it came to pass when the king heard the words of the woman that he had rent his clothes. Now he was passing upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. That's 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 30. Although he was wicked, Jehoram was later answered, and the suffering of the Jews was alleviated. V'amar Rabbi Elazar, lo hakol b'kri'ah, lo hakol b'nefilah. Moshe v'Aaron b'nefilah, Yehoshua v'Kaleb b'kri'ah. Moshe v'Aaron b'nefilah. Diktiv v'yipol Moshe v'Aaron al peneihem. Yehoshua v'Kaleb b'kri'ah. Diktiv Yehoshua ben Nun v'Kaleb ben Yefune karu bigdeihem. Yambaralai, yadalai, lalai, Yambaralai, lalai, Yambaralai, didididai, yalalai, Yambaralai, lalala, romemu, Hashem Elokeinu, Vishtachavu lehar kodsho, Ki kadosh Hashem Elokeinu. Matkifla Rabbi Zera Vitema Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani Eze Hava Kativ Yoshua Kedeka Amrat Hashta Kativ V'Yoshua Hava Ha'aved. So Rabbi Elazar further said, not all are worthy to petition God by rending their garments, and not all are worthy of falling on their faces in time of trouble. Moses and Aaron were worthy of petitioning God by falling on their faces, whereas their students, Joshua and Caleb, prayed by only rending their garments. The Gemara elaborates, Moses and Aaron petitioned God by falling on their faces. As it is written, then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces. Look it up in the book of Numbers, chapter 14. Joshua and Caleb prayed by rending their garments. It is written in the next verse, and Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Yefune, who were of those who spied out the land, rent their garments. Rabbi Zera strongly objects to this interpretation, and some say that it was Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani who objected. Had the verse written only Joshua and Caleb, the meaning would have been, as you said, that Moses and Aaron fell on their faces, whereas Joshua and Caleb only rent their garments. However, now that it is written and Joshua, it is possible that connecting the word and, that the connecting word and, indicates that Moses and Aaron merely fell upon their faces, while Joshua and Caleb did both this and that. That is to say, they rent their clothing in addition to falling upon their faces. Amar Rabbi Elazar, lo hakol b'kima, v'lo hakol b'ishtachavaya, malachim b'kima, v'sarim b'ishtachavaya, malachim b'kima, diktiv, ko amar Hashem, go'el Yisrael, kedosho. And Rabbi Elazar further said, not all dignitaries will worship God in the Messianic age by rising, and not all will do so by bowing. We're talking about the Messianic age. Rather, kings will serve God by rising, and ministers by bowing. The Gemara elaborates, kings by rising, as is written, thus said the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel, his Holy One, to who he has despised of men, to he is abhorred of nation, to a servant of rulers, kings shall see and arise. Again, Ko amar Hashem Goel Yisrael, Kadosho. Kadosho livzo nefesh. Kadosho livzo nefesh. Lemita'ev goy. Le'eved moshlim. Malachim yiru vakamu. Says in the book of Isaiah, chapter 49, verse 7. Thus says the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel, the Holy One, to he who is despised of men, to he who is abhorred of nations, to a servant of rulers. Kings shall see and arise. And ministers by bowing. V'sarim b'ishtachavaya diktiv sarim v'yishtachavu. And ministers by bowing, as it is said in the same verse, ministers, and they shall bow. Matkif la Rabbi Zera v'yitema Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. Ihava kativ v'sarim yishtachavu. Kidakamrat hashta diktiv v'sarim v'yishtachavu. Sarim v'yishtachavu havaha avud. Ayin. Rabbi Zera strongly objects to this interpretation. And some say it was Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani who objected. Had the verse written, and the ministers shall bow, the meaning would have been, as you said. However, now it is written, ministers and they shall bow. This indicates that ministers will do this and that. They will both arise and bow. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Af ani omer lo hakol le'ora, v'lo hakol le'simcha. Sadikim le'ora, v'sharim le'simcha. Sadikim le'ora, diktiv or zaru al tzadik. L'sharim le'simcha, diktiv u'le'yishrei lev simcha. Hadron alach me'ematai. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, I too say in a similar idea. Not all are fit for light, and not all are fit for gladness. The righteous are fit to be rewarded with light, and the upright are fit to be rewarded with gladness. The righteous are fit to be rewarded with light, as it is written. Or zaru al tzadik. Lev simcha. Light is sown for the righteous, and the upright are fit to be rewarded with gladness, that is written, lev simcha. And gladness for the upright of heart. May we return to you. Chapter Me'ematai. We finished the chapter, thank God. B'ezrat Hashem bli neder will continue. Let's end with one of Rabbi Steinsaltz's notes. According to Rashi, the upright are on a higher spiritual level than the righteous, and their reward is correspondingly greater. Other commentaries maintain that the righteous are on a loftier plane, and that their reward, the divine light, includes gladness granted to the upright. That's the Ritva and the Otzar Kavod. Similarly, some commentaries state that light, which is a purely spiritual gift, is only for the righteous, while the merely upright are rewarded with gladness, a more material blessing. God bless. Have a wonderful night and a pleasant tomorrow, and I'll see you soon.